Hi, I'm Isabel. I'm an artist, and on this channel, we talk about all things creativity and art related. Today, I wanted to talk about a few ways you can foster creativity in children, whether it's your kids, your grandkids, kids you babysit, whatever the case is, your nieces, nephews, how to foster creativity in children. Now, the other day, I was babysitting some children that I really love, and I built a fort for them in the living room. I loved forts as a kid. They were so much fun. We spent hours building and playing in blanket forts built in the living room. So I worked hard. I built this amazing fort for these kids, and they crawled in there with their blankets, their pillows. They got comfy. I peeked in there, and after a minute, I looked around and I was like, what is happening? I noticed every single kid was sitting on a little device. It wasn't a phone or an iPad or anything, but it had little video games on it. And I was like, guys, what are you doing? I built a fort and you're sitting and playing video games in it? If you're going to do that, I'm going to take the fort down. That's not what a fort's for. And you may think that's harsh, but forts are supposed to be like a window into creativity for kids, like a outdoor play kitchen is supposed to help a kid be creative, right? A fort is an opportunity to play, pretend, explore, not really sit and play video games. So I told them that, and they were like, well, what else are we supposed to do in the fort? And I was rather shocked. And so I gave them a few suggestions. I said, you can pretend this is a spaceship and we're traveling to outer space, or you can pretend that you're travelers and this is a little inn that you can stay at. And I gave a whole list of ideas, things that they could play that don't involve video games that would help them with creativity. So, long story, but my point is there are a lot of children today who their first instinct when they're bored is to sit and play video games. Now, I get that. There's nothing, well, we won't have the conversation. um, it's fine if your family does video games and that works for y'all. That's great. Um, I'm not here to anti talk about video games today. I want to talk about creativity. Creativity is important, and we'll talk about that in a different video. I'm still doing some research so I can have some scientific studies to share with you about that. So stay tuned. But I was saddened to see the lack of creativity in these kids. And creativity is so important. I spent an entire class in college talking about how entrepreneurs in business need creativity and imagination to succeed. Those are the people you want working for you because they have ideas. Ideas are so vital for a business's success, just as one example of how creativity is important. So, how to foster children's creativity. Here are a few tips from me. There are definitely more. So if there are more you think of that I didn't mention, please put them in the comments. I would love to see them. I would love to use them next time I babysit. The first one I would suggest to foster children's creativity is let them color outside the lines. Now, I worked in a daycare for a few years, and some of the ladies I worked with were amazing. I learned so much from them about how to help children learn and grow and about their development and how to love them well. And from others, I learned what not to do. And some of them would really work on praising the children who stayed inside the lines on their coloring sheets. You may not think this is a big deal, but going outside of the lines is fine. It's really not going to hurt anything. It doesn't necessarily show that they're doing their best. It means they're coloring like an adult, is what it actually means. When they color fully inside the lines, they're coloring like an adult. They're thinking very black and white. That is a red car in the reference, so this is a red car on my coloring page, and I will stay inside the lines. There's no creativity there. There's no wow, I could put like an entire circus inside of this car and I don't have to stay inside the lines. I could make a whole illustration of a circus and then the clowns could be coming out of maybe the hood of the car and running on this road in front of it. There's so many things that a kid could do to be creative with a coloring page, but because they are encouraged to stay inside the lines, it discourages them from exploring those creative options in their simple coloring pages. So that's my first tip. Let them color outside the lines. Don't necessarily be more impressed with coloring inside the lines versus outside the lines. They're all fine. It's just their creativity you want to foster, not necessarily their rule following, if you will, or line following. Okay, the second tip I would suggest for fostering children's creativity is let them explore. Let them explore outside. Let them explore the world. Let them or encourage them. Maybe you may have to demonstrate some of these things to them. But I remember some of the examples I'm about to give are things I remember doing as a kid that I just loved. They helped me learn. I know now, looking back, that my brain was developing while I was watching these things and learning these things. But I remember I would lay down on the ground and just watch the ants work and watch them carry things and build their little home. And I would just watch them for a long time. Snails, too. Super fun to explore and watch, observe nature. I loved exploring with trees and woods. If there was anything like woods that I could explore, I wanted to explore it. And so, nature exploring is so important for kids. And I know there's dangers today. So, I'm not saying let them be in dangerous situations, but it is important for children to spend time outside exploring. What happens when you smack a stick against a tree? How's a kid gonna know unless they try it out, you know? There's simple things like that that we don't necessarily think are a big deal, but just that freedom to explore outside while being safe is really vital for children's creativity. Along with that, not just exploring outside, but let them also explore with other things like art supplies, for example. I think there would be a huge amount of creativity boosted if you had a group of children or just your own children, whoever, you had some children, you set them down in a room and you poured out an entire table full of different art supplies. Maybe you've got crayons, colored pencils, markers, watercolors, and let them go at it. Let them go at it. Let them make any kind of mark they want on their papers. Let them explore what happens when you put marker on top of paint. Let them mix the paints together in crazy ways. Let them explore. These are things that it seems like it's not a big deal, but exploring your art supplies is essential if you're going to use them well later. There's times when I want a specific effect from a paintbrush on my canvas, but if I have not played with my paintbrushes, if I have not explored them and practiced all different kinds of line making that I could do with it, I won't know which paintbrush can give me that effect that I'm looking for. So the exploration part is really vital for kids' creativity. They have to have freedom to explore. Okay, the third thing that I suggest is to let them see you create. Whether you are a teacher, a parent, a babysitter, a grandparent, whoever, kids like to copy the adults that they admire. So I am making an assumption that the children you want to help foster their creativity are children you love and care about. If that's the case, I would hope that the children respects you and admire you, and you stepping in and doing something creative will immediately pique their interest and make them want to stop and practice creating. Now, the trick with this is they're going to learn from everything you do when you're creating, okay? So if you color inside the lines perfectly, they're going to think that's what they need to do. If you get frustrated at yourself because your painting did not look perfect, they're going to be upset with themselves when their painting doesn't look quote unquote perfect. If rather you are free and you say, "Ooh, I just love how this paintbrush makes this look," they're going to start thinking about, what do I like? Do I like that? How does the paintbrush feel? How does the paint feel? What is this like? Your narrative and your perspective on your art while you create with children will impact how they think about it. So just be mindful of that. I wouldn't be hyper self conscious about it. Just try to be free. You're creating art with kids. Nobody's going to judge your art. It's fine. If you make a lousy flower, that's totally fine. Rather, show them that it's fun to create. Show them that it can help you relax. Show them that it can be something you connect with others over. Show them those things rather than perfection, and you'll help foster their creativity because they won't pressure themselves so much as they start to get older. Okay, the fourth thing. Yeah, this is the fourth thing. I had to count. The fourth tip I have for fostering children's creativity is let them be bored. Now, I would have hated this when I was a kid if I had heard myself giving this tip, this suggestion, because I did not like being bored. I did not like it at all. Me and my siblings would often go to our mom, "Oh, mom, I'm just so bored." And she was very clever. She was like, "Well, you can go clean your rooms, or you can come help me with the dishes." No, that was in addition to our chores. She was asking us to do that as a joke because we were saying we were so bored. But when children have boredom and they don't have devices to go to solve their boredom, they have to be creative. They have to find something entertaining to do with their time. Sometimes it's climbing a tree, sometimes they might go exploring, like we talked about, with art, or maybe they're going to practice reading. Who knows? But that boredom is a space where creativity can bloom. And hopefully, it's creativity that is not destructive, like coloring on the walls or anything. So you may want to be extra mindful if your children are bored that they may be creative and get some wild hair that is not very helpful, like I mentioned, coloring the walls with marker in your house. But boredom is essential for creativity. It gives you space to come up with ideas, and ideas are really the backbone of creativity. Okay, the last tip that I have, it's getting really bright out here. I'm sorry, I'm all squinty. The last tip that I have for fostering a child's creativity is give them a few techniques and skills. What I mean by this is after you've let them explore with art supplies for a little while, give them a few structure pieces. And what I mean by that is show them a little bit of how the art supplies work. Show them that when you mix certain colors together, you can get a brand new color. And I say that because while you may have let them explore earlier about mixing paint, a lot of kids will mix every color together. And every single color together typically gets some kind of yucky green, brown, blackish gray kind of mixture. So they understand they can create that, but they don't necessarily understand always that you can mix yellow and blue and get green. So if you show them things like that, color mixing, super simple color mixing, like your primary colors to create your secondary colors, blue and red to get purple, orange and red, um, yellow and red to get orange. I'm flipping all my words. You're going to give them a tool that they can use next time they have freedom to explore with art supplies. They're going to remember and say, I'm going to practice this. And that can help foster their creativity. So, one way to do this, to give your kids some structure to their art, is find an art course. You can find art courses for kids online. There are tons. There are also free videos on YouTube that are targeting for kids. I don't have any specific recommendations right now. I do hope to do some myself in the future. So if you're interested, please subscribe and maybe I'll have some eventually. But there are free resources online for helping kids create art. There are videos about watercolor, acrylic, charcoal, basic drawing, colored pencils, all the things. There's also books, homeschool courses that can cover some of this stuff as well. There are step by step book instructions, and some of it maybe you just have to look for what's going to fit you and the kids you're trying to help their creativity the best. It may be that one thing's better for you and a different resource is better for someone else. So I can't necessarily give a recommendation on that, but giving the children a little bit of structure and some tools to use when they're exploring can hugely help their creativity. It immediately gives them tons of new ideas. It's like when you give a child, okay, imagine a really little child and they are in the bathtub and you give them a toy that floats. Now they want to test if everything floats or sinks. It gives them a whole new world of possibilities. And when you give them just a few structures of art or just a few, I don't really want to say rules or elements, but just a few basic, here's how it works, it opens up a whole world of possibilities for them and ideas can just abound. So, those are my tips for fostering creativity. Let them color outside the lines, let them explore, let them see you create, let them be bored, and give them a few structures. All right, let me know in the comments what you think, what you would add, and if you try this out, how it works. And yeah, have a good day. Bye.